provided on #GotMoney is general advice only. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. Before acting on this advice, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice, having regard to your own objectives, financial situation and needs. We recommend you seek independent advice.
Got money? Frightened of money? Have money and want more money? Listen to Elizabeth and her team of professionals dismantle the jargon of money. Whether it's cryptocurrency, your super, estate planning or the ATO. #GotMoney will bang it home with a sledgehammer.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to #GotMoney. I'm Elizabeth Jackson. Interesting show, actually. I'm just starting off by saying hello to Phoebes. Hey, Phoebe.
Hey, Elizabeth. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Great evening to be here.
Yeah, how's your Christmas been so far?
It's been really good.
Lots of festive cheer?
Lots of festive cheer.
Oh, gorgeous. Lots of turkey.
Lots of turkey.
We do love a good
all the
turkey.
fun.
And a chicken.
And a chicken.
A little bit of lamb. Not that I'm carnivorous at all. So I was on LinkedIn. You know, I do like to troll around LinkedIn a little bit. And I came across a really interesting article on studio accommodation. And that's kind of how I looked at it. I read it as studio accommodation from a really interesting group called Charles Lloyd. Today we have Franco Bevacqua. Did you like it?
Corretto.
Grazie. The director of Charles Lloyd, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Lovely to have you here. And we've got Scott from Scott Banks Real Estate. Welcome.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Frank, I want to start with you. So you've started to build some really extraordinary studio accommodation and also dual key properties here in Melbourne. But before we dive into that, how long have you been in the building space? How long have you been a developer out there in Melbourne?
Well, look, I've been in the development industry for probably about 38 years, and the Charles Lloyd Property Group has been in existence for in excess of 20-odd years in its current form.
So you've been around for a long time. You know what you're doing.
Absolutely. And in that time, we've done a lot of different projects and been involved in a lot of different scenarios where we've actually been residential home builders, land developers, etc. But our core business currently at the moment is residential land development, but out of that land development comes a number of other areas in the housing market, which, as you've introduced earlier, where our studio homes project was born from, and also the dual key projects were born from. So we're trying to be innovative and also trying to find in the affordable space to take care of people which aren't being looked at by the market. So consequently, as we all know, everyone, the term is that we're building McMansions, and the housing floor plates have actually becoming smaller, not larger. Yeah. Because there's more single and parent households. There's single households. There's couples, and the actual family unit households have actually less than the others. And there was a report put out just recently by one of the industry groups, which was the UDIA, as I understand, which showed that the family households were at 47%, and that it showed. Now these numbers might be a little bit skewed, but they were fundamentally, the balance of the 53% was made up of about a 5% of others, and then about 23% of singles in one, 23% and 22 say in the couples. So what that tells me, there's more in the smaller household groups than what there is in the larger groups. But having said that, then affordability does definitely come into play.
Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting. We're seeing a lot of families split up. It's just the nature of it. And what's happening in that process of divorce is that the split might be at the time feel like a lot of money, but essentially what it does is it leaves two parties desperately trying to re-enter housing market.
And entering it without the benefits of being the first home buyer that they might have once been. So housing affordability and stamp duty in Victoria is extraordinarily expensive. There's really very little discounting.
So what are you building to that space? How are you helping out in that space?
Okay. Well, firstly, if we look at the studio homes, fundamentally that is a rental space. It's not a purchase space because there's the rental market doesn't cater for a lot of the demographic that we're catering for. So perhaps if I let Scott give you a bit of an insight into the demographics and the type of clients that are coming in and who we're actually looking after.
Okay, sure. So Liz, just the point you made about say people going through a divorce. Some of our clients, our tenants in the properties have gone through that exact thing. They're separated, but they want to remain near the family. So there's not really an option for them to go and lease something. So I've known Frank for over 30 years. I always like his way of looking at the market, and he's a can-do man. So, if other people say it can't be done, he says, well, let's figure out how we can do this. So, we spoke about this concept a few months ago, and I happened to be looking at it at the same time. So I'd see it's and having two facilities now fully leased, the response from the market's just been incredible.
Where are you doing the build, Frank?
The builds are, first of all, the actual areas that we have them in at the moment are Frankston, Berwick and Bundoora.
So you've got three.
Yeah, we've got three, but we've got others in the planning, but we'll talk about the ones that are actually live and on the ground. And all of our studios or the studio homes are all connected within transport hubs, major shopping centres, universities and railway stations. So they need to be have all the facilities around them to be able to cater for these particular clients that we're dealing with. Rather, we can't be on a greenfield site.
No, that won't work.
No, that's right.
So how easy are they to lease, Scott?
Very easy. Look, Frank's just hit on the money here. I think, as I mentioned before, a couple separating. We've got one of our guests that has gone through a divorce but wants to remain near the family, so it moved in. We've actually just had a doctor who's coming down from Sydney to work down at Frankston, and he's secured one of the studios. We've got graphic designers, healthcare workers. So it's really sort of quite surprised us, the demand. From
and you don't you go and sleep in these units. You don't live in these units, do you?
Correct. Yeah. Look, the way that they've been set up, and I think haven't touched on this, that they're fully furnished. So when we were setting these up, we looked at, and Scott and I discussed it actually at some length, and we weren't sure which way to go, and we decided that furnishing these units was it was going to be the core of this particular business, simply because the clients that we're dealing with are coming out of situations. It could be a relationship, could be someone moving out of home, it could be someone needing some emergency accommodation, for argument's sake. So they're not going to have a lot to bring with them. So basically they need to be able to move in without having to have the hassle of being able to get out and go and buy a bed, go and buy a couch and all these things. But it needs to be affordable. So you can't have say for argument's sake, a serviced apartment because they're charging hotel rates, which is not appropriate for these clients. So that's.
Is it short-term accommodation, Frank?
No, definitely not.
You like how I did that?
No.
Straight in there, like an axe.
Like an axe.
No.
But what we're providing is power, the water, and the internet for them. So people come in and it's all set up. So tenants are loving that they can just walk in basically with their clothes. They can plug into the Wi-Fi and off they go. Yeah,
this is how we used to live in London. This is exactly how we used to live. So they're long-term rentals?
Yes.
What's a long-term for
12 months.
12 months?
12 months, yeah.
Gosh, that's good. So what is a rental? How much do you pay to rent one of these studios?
So the average rent's around the 333, around that sort
a
of
week.
Yeah.
A week.
And everything's included?
Everything's
Absolutely.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Me and my partner will move and let me know when. Fantastic.
It'll be nice.
So this is the marketplace that you're going to stay in this marketplace,
Absolutely.
obviously, because the yields are huge.
You asked about the demand for this type of product. Well, we are probably experiencing somewhere between 30 to 40 inquiries a week that come in through our social media advertising, which is handled by social media guru, which is Victoria.
She's in the studio now. She's just smiling sweetly.
And she does a great job. But yeah, so we have an actual, for our Bandura, which we're about to launch, we have a waiting list at the moment for that particular building there. So there's a lot of demand for the product, and it's really a matter of picking the locations and ensuring that we're providing the services that promoting.
How big are these units? So if you were to move in, what are you moving into?
25 to 30 square metres is.
That's not a bad size for a studio.
You'd swing a dead cat around that.
Absolutely.
Sorry to cat lovers, but you could.
But not for individual sale. You're owning it yourself, and just we're renting those ones.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. That's
and
right.
what about the dual key products as well? What were they?
Okay, well, the dual key, we're doing those currently on our residential projects, our land estates, came about by looking at the multi-generational situation at the moment, where you've got a lot of the, it could be teenage children or adult children still living at home. We've got, it could be the mother-in-law, it could be the grandmother that's living there.
Such a good idea, Frank.
It is, and we found this purely out of the demand. People were coming to us and saying, look, we want a 4-bedroom house and land package, but we want to have an extra bathroom in it. We want this in it. We want that in it. And we're saying, well, why do you want that? Oh, because I've got my mother-in-law and she's on her own and she's elderly, or I've got my eldest boy. He's still at home. He's 38.
Yeah. And, by the way, there are a lot of those.
There are a lot of those.
Yeah. There are a lot of those.
So consequently, we looked at this, and this is nothing new. Up in Queensland, the dual key product is pretty popular, but in Melbourne or Victoria, not so. But so we've created a supported residence. So in other words, one home with 2 incomes, and we've got a. For want of a better word, call it a granny flat, but it's not. It's under the same roof and it's part of the same house, but it has its own separate entry.
I want to ask you, how did you do this? Because I've got developers out there that want to do this and just gave up on it because it was so difficult, because you actually have to go to the council and say, give me permission to do this. And the council normally scratches its head and says, could you give us 9 months to consider that, please?
Yeah. Well, we're not, well, this is still one home, but it has a supported residence. And supported residence, that's how we're actually able to do these, because it must be supported by the main house. Okay. So it can't be on its own.
No kitchen, no.
No. You can't have a. You can have a wet bar, in the place, but you can't have a kitchen, and the laundry. You can't have a laundry in there either. So it must be supported by the main.
Okay.
The main
well, that's cool. But there's no access to the main area of the house.
No. You can have. Yeah. No. There's no access. No. Not at all. No.
Okay.
So when you talk about 2 incomes, go into detail with that a little bit more. So we're talking about buying these properties as an investment property.
Someone could,
and renting it out separately.
Separately, because they're not joined. The buildings aren't joined internally. Externally, they are. So they have their own separate entrance. Yeah.
It's really cool, isn't it?
It's really cool.
I've got a developer in Wodonga, and what he's doing is he's doing 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom homes, and he's building the studios in each of the rooms, which I think is really clever. And then he's keying each individual door, which is an incredible way to get yield. But the problem with that, Scott, too, is the rental management of something like that is actually quite difficult.
It's very specialised. That's what we're learning. A lot of the traditional, with respect to all agents, a lot of traditional models of management don't work. So we've spent a lot of time, Frank and I, working out a system, so we're able to sort of manage Frankston, Berwick, and then also Bandura. So we're putting things into place and working on software systems that enable us to be able to sort of manage that remotely in a way.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing, because you've really got different. I was at the pool a week ago and I heard a woman talking to, she's obviously runs a house share as an investor, and talking to one of her tenants really loudly, obviously. She's lucky she didn't get a chip thrown at her. And I heard about, and I really got to understand the complexities of doing that, because if somebody moves out, it can undo the whole chain of events. But what you've done is you've set it up as individual rental management.
Correct. Yeah, it's still a community, so we like to have the right sort of people people fit.
Yeah, how do you manage that? Because, geez.
Look, it's difficult, but I think because of the product that's on offer, we seem to be able to attract the right sort of people that fit into the energy of the place, and we're finding a real community environment's been created in these spaces, which is really special. The tenants comment on it, and we had a guy move down from Canberra. I think it was Canberra, and his neighbour, he got to know his neighbour, and lo and behold, it was his next day was his birthday. They went out for dinner together. So
that's
it was just a beautiful thing where had he have gone into a typical rental, he'd be isolated. So we're finding this community feel. People coming from Sydney. We've got a student from Malaysia, and they love that community sort of environment.
Is there a community gathering area being built there?
Well, there's a common room. There's a common room, like with the studios. Like they've all got their own living area, but then there's the common room, which they all can congregate in. And we've actually created, apart from the common room, we've created some great outdoor spaces which they can actually congregate as well. So we've got the nice terrace with some tables and chairs, so they can congregate and socialise. But all of this has got to also to do with well-being. I mean, look, if you're single and you're on your own, fundamentally, I'm being told to put my mic right up to my mouth.
He kind of wafts in and then he wafts out. It's all right, folks. I've got him. I've got this in control. Okay. Go for it, Frank.
So fundamentally, like the well-being. I mean, if you're single, I mean, if you go and rent a room in a traditional sort of residential house, and you're going to lock yourself in there. You've got nowhere to go, nothing to do. You've got no amenity. You've got no one to socialise with when you want to. So our studios either have their own separate garden, and they also, if they're upstairs in the second level, they've got their own balcony, which is great amenity. So they can either entertain on their own, or they can entertain with company in the common areas. Yeah.
So I see this as being a really practical solution inside a massive affordable housing crisis. Do you ever get to the point where you can sell these as individual units inside the space?
No, they're not subdividable. No, not at all.
Okay.
So the reality of these are that people that are single are really looked upon. And look, let's face it. If you're looking for a room, the type of accommodation that's catered for, let's say second and third tier type landlords, they're just doing it simply just to get revenue and don't have any care or consideration for the clients. When we looked at these, we looked at the demographic and who we would be dealing with, and we wanted to give them some amenity. We didn't want to just give them a room to go and live in and get depressed in.
Well, the units are beautiful. I checked you out online. Obviously, I went to your landing page and went nuts. Not physically nuts. I was okay. They're really, really beautiful. They're well considered. They're bright. There's lots of light. The colours are great. I commend you for that. Are you going to start building can you take this footprint that you've developed, and can you sell that entire footprint to developers or to individual investors?
Look, that's possible, but the reality of the matter is the way it works is we're developing not only the accommodation but the brand to go with it. Studio Homes is a brand. And look, once you start to mix it with single operators, that's when it'll all fall down, because then they don't have the same, let's say, tenacity to look after the clients themselves. So if we were to do that, we would only do it with our brand attached to it. We wouldn't do it any other way. Just doing one of these projects and just giving it off holus bolus to somebody to do it themselves. And Scott might like to comment on that, because it just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, there's so much thought, and we put so much effort into getting it right. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of landlords are just more about the rent. We really try and create a beautiful environment where our guests and tenants are really happy to be there. So it's hard to have that philosophy out there, and like Frank said, Studio Homes is a brand, and it's run in a certain way, and it would be hard to bring in sort of private landlords that didn't have the same sort of idea. So we'd have to have, complete control of the whole thing, basically.
Yeah, I kind of saw this as being a way to address a massive social housing crisis. But government, I know, or any of the not-for-profits will want to own. I'm sure they'll be happy to build, but they'll want to own outright so they can facilitate their own.
Well, if they wanted to, we could certainly develop them for others, like a non-for-profit. That's a different situation. But we wouldn't potentially have it under our branding because we wouldn't have control.
Yeah, you
of
wouldn't
it.
like that.
We wouldn't. Look, it's if let's have a look at if you go to an institution or a funder to fund one of these projects. I mean, the first thing that the credit department's going to ask you, how are you going to run it? How are you going to look after it? So as soon as if it's a self-managed super fund or it's a mum and dad investor, whatever it is that wanted to do one of these, the reality of them getting funding from one of the majors is probably next to nil.
Yeah, pretty slim.
I was going to ask you how you funded these projects because I was wondering if it was going to be private investment because that was my expectation, but it's interesting that you're getting the lending from lenders.
Well, the reality of the matter is we can all speak quite openly here. When we first started out, we could not get funding from any of the majors or the second-tier banks for these projects. We went out and we funded them ourselves. We currently have one funder on board, which is doing it with us, and it's one of the second-tier banks, which they're very, very good. But it's taken us about 2 years to convince them that this is the product, and we've had to go through the process of building the brand, building the product, showing them, educating.
Leasing it out.
It's all the journey, isn't it? So I mean, really, you're pioneers into this space, aren't you?
It is. It's an adaptation of what's out there at the moment. It's just that no one's thought about bringing it in and making it a concept that people can then latch on to, which gives them some better amenity and some lifestyle if you're a single person or it can be a couple as well.
We had one of the not-for-profits in there, and I think I was saying to you outside, I just think, this is the thing, they're building product for that space, but they haven't given consideration to the point that this is about well-being, which
That's
you just
right.
mentioned.
Exactly.
You want to go into an environment
It's
and be
managing
healed.
the facility.
Be healed and be healthy and get an understanding that you're walking in the right direction in life. And I think that's what you've created, which is just stunning. Is this just going to be for Victoria? Or are you going to take this show on the road?
All over Australia. But we need to do some hard yards first. That's the ambition is to have this not only in metro, regional Victoria as well. We haven't touched the regions because it's been difficult enough to get the funding for metro, let alone regional. But look, we're really excited, but we're more excited about that being in the development industry for such a long time. Look, people talk about looking after their clients and what they do and what they don't do, and we're going to build you a big park and a big community and a big this and a big that. I mean, this is more about looking after the individuals that haven't been looked after in the past. Is how do we actually provide value to people, and value can be. I think well-being. People understate that in a huge way.
Massively. Frank Scott, thank you for joining us on #GotMoney. It's been amazing having you here, and thank you for your work and what you're doing, Frank. You're a legend.
Amazing.
He's good, isn't he?
Absolutely.
Both of you.
Phoebe and I have an event on the 10th of January. What are we calling that event?
We're calling it Myth-Busting Property Investing.
Oh my God.
I'm shortening it.
Oh my God, she's nailed it. If you need us, please go to #gotmoney.com.au for all of your questions. If you want to join us on our event, just hit the event tab.
We would love to see you there. And it's us. And you're just talking to us and you can ask us questions and we'll have some very interesting presenters.
Yes, we've got a very cute financial planner coming, but we will tell you more as we proceed. Merry Christmas. Please be safe out there on the roads, and we look forward to hanging out with you next week.
Can't wait.
Got money? Frightened of money? Have money and want more money? Listen to Elizabeth and her team of professionals dismantle the jargon of money. Whether it's cryptocurrency, your super, estate planning, or the ATO. #GotMoney will bang it home with a sledgehammer.